So Donald Trump is resorting to conspiracy theories and lies to blast the Biden administration's handling of the Hurricane Helene disaster. But this week, we're learning from new bombshell reporting that this accusation was basically a confession of an absolutely egregious act Trump took when he was president. Two former Trump administration officials now tell Politico's E&E News that as president, Trump repeatedly hesitated to give disaster aid to areas he considered politically hostile or ordered special treatment for pro-Trump states. One of those sources, former National Security Council official Mark Harvey, said that Trump initially refused to approve disaster aid for California after deadly wildfires in 2018 because of the state's Democratic leanings. But Harvey said Trump changed his mind after Harvey pulled voting results to show him that heavily damaged Orange County, California, had more Trump supporters than the entire state of Iowa. Quote, "We went as far as looking up how many votes he got in those impacted areas to show him these are people who voted for you," Harvey said. Harvey, who's since endorsed Kamala Harris for president, later said of Trump, "There's no empathy for the survivors. It's all about getting your photo up, right? Disaster theater to make him look good." On some level, you probably suspected this all along, but this is a genuine smoking gun. People that work for Trump speaking openly on the record about what ought to be like impeachment level offense. An American president refusing to sign off on disaster aid to people he thought weren't sufficiently supportive of his political ambitions. Trump did exactly what he's falsely accusing the current president of doing. It's also a reminder of part of what was so upsetting about Trump's tenure, remember, 4 years ago, bungling the country's response to its first dangerous pandemic in 100 years, watching him lie and brag and blame his way through interminable daily press conferences. It was crystal clear the political consequences were all he cared about with COVID. He did not give one damn about whether people got sick or died or how many. He cared about his reelection and his political fortunes. He told his vice president, Mike Pence, not to call desperate governors who he deemed insufficiently grateful. He mused about cutting aid to blue states. He talked about limiting testing for COVID because more testing would show more sickness, and that would look bad for him. Now we've got this smoking gun evidence of him basically saying, I'm not going to get disaster relief to California because they don't have enough Republicans there. That's the Trump model of governance. Extreme and thankfully rare. I don't think there's anyone who governs like that. For a different model of governance, look how President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have handled the recent longshoremen strike. A strike over wages and mechanization that threatened to bring trade at many of America's ports on the East Coast to a halt, which could have and would have likely have driven up supply shortages and consumer costs, spiking inflation a month before the presidential election. Now, the politically safe thing, I think, for the Biden administration to do would have been to just intervene, halt the strike, pause it, order union members back to work. And that's a power that's given to the president under the Anti-Union Taft-Hartley Act of 1947. Previous presidents, including Richard Nixon, George W. Bush, have invoked it to stop port strikes. But Biden thought that would be selling out the workers, and they're bargaining for a new contract.
Mr. President, would you intervene in the dock workers' strike if they go on strike on Tuesday?
No.
Why not?
Because it's collective bargaining. I don't believe in Taft-Hartley.
Harris also came out in support of the union dock workers, saying it was about fairness and that she backed the strike, and that support from the president and vice president strengthened the union's position. And after 2 days, the union suspended the strike to continue negotiations on a new contract. Conservatives at Fox News, who were rooting for a costly strike that could impact millions of Americans heading into the election, sounded pretty disappointed.
I've got to prepare all of you to get very angry because what we're about to share with you will rightly make your blood boil. As most of you know, ports, by the way, along the East Coast were shut down this week because of a union leader's demands. We have the update on that, and including a reported 75% pay raise for dock workers. I think now the employers are up to 62%. Anyway, a lot of them make six figures. Kamala Harris supported this shutdown, which cost you, the American people, is costing us billions of dollars a day.
Well, the longshoremen strike may be temporarily suspended until mid-January. And although Kamala Harris, of course, breathing a sigh of relief tonight, American voters shouldn't.
Everything's politics, right? How does it benefit Trump, right? Now, there wasn't a particularly clear political benefit to Biden and Harris supporting the strike. The Longshoremen's Union, for instance, which endorsed Biden in 2020, hasn't made an endorsement this year, and I'm not sure Harris is going to win a majority of those members. And labor is a core Democratic constituency, but it's also clear that despite the Biden-Harris administration's strongly pro-labor record, union voters in most polls support has hit an all-time low for the Democratic ticket. So this wasn't really transactional politics as much as I think it was just genuinely principled. That the right thing to do in the moment was to side with labor. That's what they believed. And that's not to say Biden and Harris and other politicians across both parties don't have political agendas as well. Of course, they're traditional politicians in that sense. For all their ideological commitments and relationships, though, they do have some sense of the public interest, like what is right, what is best for most Americans. They just don't approach every single last decision by first thinking, what will get me elected, what will give me more power. But that is how Donald Trump thinks. He's a man who changed a hurricane path with a Sharpie because he'd been ridiculed for misstating where the storm was headed, who autographed a stock chart to take credit for every bump in market value in the middle of COVID. He is incapable of thinking about others except in the most instrumental, exploitive ways. We lived through one of the worst examples, and it was so traumatic we basically blocked it out. Now we've learned that he really does see aid as something that only his people deserve. It is possible to expect something more out of our presidents than a constant transactional obsession with their status. You don't have to love Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to see that they really have an idea of what it means to work for the public interest. But you have to be blind to pretend Donald Trump has any interest in anything other than his own weird and broken ego.